I'm a nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut. Today we'll go bird watching, tomorrow we'll catch toads. The next day we'll take photographs of bugs along the road. I never get the feeling that I'm in a rut. That's why I'm a nature nut. Well, I'm a nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.
Well, hello, nature nuts, and welcome to the bald prairie. Do you see any predators? I'm looking for predators today. Might have bitten off more than I can chew because there aren't a lot of predators on the prairie. But that's our theme, predators on the prairie. I think we're gonna find some, mind you, but it would have been a lot easier if we had done this show about 50,000 years ago, because then there were predators. Oh, there were predators everywhere. There were also, you know, the herds of bison that I'm sure you know about, as well as a whole mess of other sorts of ungulates and things like this chasing them. Do you know what this is? I borrowed this fossil. This is the left maxilla and associated teeth of a lion. And this fossil is a couple of tens of thousands of years old. This fossil was found right here in southern Alberta. And, you know, there was a time when lions roamed the prairies. And not just lions, we're talking big lions. Now, I borrowed this from the University of Alberta's Laboratory for Vertebrate Paleontology. I was going to get a lion skull, a modern lion skull, to show you, to compare with this fossil. I couldn't find one, so I borrowed this Siberian tiger skull from my friends at Alberta Environmental Protection. But anyway, have a look at this. Look, see? There, that's the part of the skull that we're talking about. And as you can see, this thing was probably half again as heavy as this great big honkin' Siberian tiger. Look at that, look at that. Compare the width of the zygomatic arch in particular. If that doesn't convince you, nothing will. So it might have been easier to do this show 50,000 years ago, but the more I look at this skull, the more I think we're gonna have a much smoother time of it today. Look at the size of that canine tooth. I mean, this was a serious carnivorous critter. When lions roamed the plains, maybe we should reintroduce them, bring some over from Africa. Let them loose, see what happens. Boy, I bet that idea'd go over big here in cattle country, don't you think?
The North American lion was apparently the largest member of the cat family that ever lived.
So you're looking for predators, huh? I'll show you a predator. Just see this back here. This used to be a church, and what's inside of it used to be a predator. Make yourselves at home. So you see this here and that up there? Well, them was the last remains of old Dough Hog. Old Dough Hog was the last plains grizzly bear in this part of the world. And you know, we used to have a lot. Well, before I tell you that story, I'll tell you, these are predatory animals that run as fast as a man and chase down other critters, deer and wild pigs and stuff like that. Rip them shred from shred and eat them just like you and me would eat a tuna fish sandwich. But she also liked dough, that old Dough Hog. We used to have what we call, well, a lot of dough, because we had a donut pickling plant here in town, just out on the grass where we was just talking out there. And then old Dough Hog come through that thing and just looking for dough and terrify the stink out of the whole bunch of us. There's 27 of us working there one time. The conditions were kind of rough, but it was okay in the way, you know, because there's lots of work, of course. And just put the donuts on the train, send them up down the line to other places where they'd eat them in the wintertime.
There's a coyote. And isn't that just a typical look at a coyote? You can't get a good look at a coyote by stopping to look at a coyote. You only get a good look at a coyote when you drive past it at highway speed. When you stop to look at it, it runs away, just like this one is running away right now. You know the reason, of course. Most of the time when somebody stops to look at a coyote, it's because they've got a high-powered rifle and they want to shoot the coyote. Coyotes are predators. We gotta face facts. They do occasionally eat livestock. But, you know, despite the fact that probably as many bullets have been shot at coyotes as, you know, you get in your average small war, there are still lots of coyotes. They're very successful animals. They seem to adapt very well to life around people. You'll notice, too, that I'm saying coyote. It's just my way. You could also say coyote or coyote or coyote or yote or ute or any of those kind of things. I did look in the Oxford English Dictionary, by the way. They say that the proper pronunciation is coyote. Ah, bravo! The coyote. Ta-ta. It's exactly what you'd expect from a place that doesn't have any coyotes.
There are 240 species in the dog family, and we have 6 of them here in Canada if you count domestic dogs.
I don't want to badger this animal, so I'm going to stay back here behind the fence. Now, isn't that an attractive critter? That's an adult American badger, not to be confused with other kinds of badgers, like the European badger, or the hog badger, or the ferret badger, or the stink badger. We don't need no stink badgers here. There is a thing called a stink badger. Can you believe that? Amazing. But right now we're focusing on this badger, the American badger, a very handsome critter. As far as I know, this is a mother badger with young badgers in the den. She's a little bit nervous about me, but she'll probably calm down and go about her business in a bit here. It's nice to see a badger like this. In this part of the world where there's a lot of ranching, badgers get shot quite often because they do a lot of digging. And they dig holes, and those holes, I guess, can be a hazard for cows and horses, but badgers, for the most part, are doing a lot of good by eating things like ground squirrels. And I've heard some people here express the view that badgers and ground squirrels get along fine because you see the two in the same field, apparently coming out of the same holes. It's not true. It is not true. The badger is a predator. It's a carnivore. It's a member of the weasel family. It's related to weasels and minks and wolverines and skunks and all sorts of other predatory critters, and it is basically here to dig out the ground squirrels and kill them and eat them. You may not see the carnage, but it's happening. It's happening underground. And it's probably good because it's probably all grisly and there's lots of blood and stuff involved. Believe me, anybody who thinks that badgers and ground squirrels get along, they don't get along at all, period. I like the stripy face on a badger. The stripy face and the wide body. This is actually a really good look at a badger. Most of the time when you see a badger, you're driving along and you see them running away. When they see the car, they start running away. And it's, oh, they're so funny. They're just like a little chunk of carpet remnant going blah, 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 with little short stubby legs across the prairie. Comical. They hold their tails up as if they're gonna drag in anything. They got a little stubby nothing of a tail. They're wider. Oh, they're neat. They're like a little furry Hummer is what they're like. I like badgers. Oh, and look at that. You talk about badgers long enough and the young ones come out. And they're almost as big as the adult, but they're still young. They got a young look to them. And look, they're so affectionate. Isn't that nice, the way they sort of lie on top of their mother, as if she was just a load of laundry piled on the ground, which is a lot what she's looking like right now. Just a load of laundry. Yeah, that's kind of a nice little family scene. And you know, when they get old enough to leave their mother, they will disperse, sometimes traveling more than 100 kilometers to find a territory of their own. So, you know, badgers, they're doing all right. You gotta like them. And other wildlife is highly dependent on badgers as well. You know, there are a lot of things that need good big holes in the prairies that aren't very good diggers themselves. Things like burrowing owls, the swift fox, that's a very, very rare creature that's just being reintroduced to this part of the world. They need badger holes. There's beetles that you can find only in badger holes. Black widow spiders, if you're ever looking for a black widow spider, an old badger hole is about the best possible place to look. So, you gotta figure the badger is an important part of the prairie predator parade. A big badger can weigh 12 kilograms or about 25 pounds. Okay, we have to be sly and we have to be cunning here because that's a fox. That's a red fox, the common sort of fox. Still a beautiful fox, but it's the fox that we think of when we think about the word fox. This is the fox that gets in people's hen houses. This is the fox that is so terribly foxy. This is the fox that they hunt in the fox hunt in Britain. It's the red fox. It's quite obviously a member of the dog family. It looks like a very small, sleek dog. It's got a beautiful coat. They're red foxes, but they're not really red. I mean, that's another one of those animal names. It's more sort of orangish or even cinnamon colored with a white pattern on the underfur. It's a carnivore. It eats primarily small rodents and bugs and occasionally ground nesting birds. Now, of course, this is a much smaller animal than a coyote. A coyote outweighs a red fox by quite a hefty margin, and in fact, coyotes will kill red foxes, so red foxes try to avoid coyotes. A gorgeous, sleek, impressive, although small, one might even say diminutive, predator of the prairies, the quintessential fox, the red fox. Okay, well, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what about birds of prey? And have a look over there. That's one of my favorite birds of prey, and on the prairies, it's a very typical bird of prey, the burrowing owl. I've always had bad luck with this species, not just because they're rare, but because every time I see them, they're always far away, they're very nervous and shy, and you wind up looking at them through a bunch of heat haze, or, your wind is wiggling your lens or your spotting scope around, and that's what's happening here. But you still get the impression it's a good-looking owl. It's a long-legged, short-tailed owl, and the reason that it is long-legged and short-tailed is because it actually nests underground. Even though it's called a burrowing owl, it doesn't do the burrowing itself. It hangs out with ground squirrels and badgers and uses old burrows that they have constructed. And then the burrowing owl itself is a predator on a lot of insects, beetles, grasshoppers, as well as small mammals. And speaking of small mammals, speaking of ground squirrels,
Did you know that when they're just nibbling the leaves off plants, they are, of course, not predators. They are herbivores. But when a mouse or a gopher grabs a seed and eats a seed, then biologists call it a seed predator, because when you eat a seed, you kill the seed and you kill the plant that the seed could have become. So when you're looking at a burrowing owl, you are looking at a predator that eats other predators while living in the burrow of another predator out here on the prairies. And you know, I kind of like that heat haze in the background, don't you? Although we shouldn't really call it heat haze. It's more differential air temperature haze. You can even see it in midwinter. Popular misconception, glad to have the chance to clear it up here.
Other owls also live on the prairie, but only where there are trees where they can roost.
I love to camp on the prairie because there are no bears. Up in the mountains it's scary and I don't like to be scared. I want to go to sleep at night and not be worried by sounds of the creatures that prowl round in the dark, 'cause I know there are no bears around. I'm not afraid of the coyotes, no matter how weirdly they howl. I'm not afraid of the bobcat, I'm not afraid of the owls. I'm not afraid of the foxes, no matter how foxy they be. I'm not afraid of any of them, 'cause I know they're afraid of me. Yep. But once I read in the library a tale that filled me with fear. Tens of thousands of years ago when people first got here. Saber-toothed tigers and lions and cheetahs and probably swarms of giant mosquitoes. But nowadays there's nothing as neat as camping on the lone prairie. I know some people worry about being stung or bit by scorpions or spiders, but I wouldn't fret about it. I'm not afraid of rattlesnakes. I watch where I step, that's all it takes. Staying alive is a piece of cake way out on the lone prairie.
Okay, well here's a neat one for you. Now, if you look in the dictionary of ecology, evolution, and systematics, you'll find that the word predator really means an organism that feeds by preying on other organisms, killing them for food. So it doesn't just mean carnivore. Carnivore refers to a particular group of mammals like cats and dogs and bears and weasels and things like that. This critter is a predator. It's a short-horned lizard, and I'm showing you a short-horned lizard because it's one of the very few lizards in Canada. And we're right down along the U.S. border in southern Alberta. This is about as far north as they get. There's a couple other lizards in this country, like an alligator lizard out on the coast and a couple of skinks, but this is our coolest lizard. And if you watch this little guy or gal or whatever it is, you'll notice that it's behaving very much like a regular lizard, like the sorts of lizards if you saw the show we did on lizards in Arizona. Most of the time it's just sunning itself. If the clouds obscure the sun, then the lizard sort of hugs down on the rocks. If it's nice and sunny out, the lizard stands up and, takes in its domain. And these ones are neat because they eat almost nothing but ants. And there are lots and lots of little black ants in here, and they're just lapping them up. They sort of catch them with their tongue, blip, like that sort of thing. And that's partly why some people call them horned toads. They're not toads. Toads are amphibians. These are lizards, which is a kind of a reptile. You hear them called horny toads even, but they're no hornier than anything else out here. They're just short-horned lizards. If you're really thinking about the word predator and whether this critter qualifies, there's also another term, insectivore, which refers to something that eats only insects, which is true of these critters. In fact, they're even formicivores. That means they only eat ants. Formicids are ants. So that's a formicivorous, insectivorous, predaceous, predatory predator on the prairies. The short-horned lizard.
The short-horned lizard is one of 15 species of horned lizards in North America.
Well, you know, I'm feeling pretty good about this little expedition. We set out in search of predatory animals, and predators are not always easy to find, especially big predators. We didn't do too badly at all. But I gotta tell you, you know, we've had a couple of great predator moments that I'm not able to show you. A couple hours ago, a weasel showed up, but it was so weaselly, that little critter, didn't get a shot of it. Yesterday, a swift fox. You know why they call them swift foxes? They're swift. Swifter than we are. It's too bad. I love sharing those kind of nature moments. That's my raison d'etre, my joie de vivre. That's why I am a nature nut, and I hope you are too. See you again soon. Who knows, maybe we'll bump into each other out here on the lone prairie. Bring your binoculars when you come down. You'll see me coming any direction for a couple of miles. Except up or down.
Same time each and every week, uncensored and uncut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.